And we're live. Welcome to our post-draft analysis with me, Honor 6, and
Oak.
there you go. Sounded a little slow on there, but that might have just been Discord. Alright, so this is our post-draft breakdown. Did it a little differently. Most people do letter grades. I thought that was dumb, and there's too much bias in that, so I went and made it as complicated as possible, and I made a bunch of different equations. Let's take a peek at these different categories. So these are the 15 categories that I decided made up a good draft league team. I came up with an equation for each different one and measured it out. There were a couple where I had to give a little bit of, yeah, okay, this is a really good part of this is a really good part of that, but I tried to leave it as unbiased as possible. There's minimal amounts of bias when it comes to this. So our categories today are your Fire, Water, Grass core, your Fairy, Dragon, Steel core, Psychic, Fighting, Dark core, the attack power, which is more or less the strength of your attackers and the coverage of your attackers. Attack balance is, are you way too specially attack based, are you way too physically attack based, or are you a good mix of them? Speed tiers is speed tiers. Momentum, Volt Switch, U-turn, Parting Shot, stuff like that. Type variety is your redundancies in your typage. Also, this is the Tsunami section. It's the type variety. Although, spoilers, Tsunami doesn't have the most Tsunami-fied team. Then we have the bulk, which is essentially just physical defense, special defense, HP all added together with some modifiers I threw in there. Defense balance is the same thing, but as attack balance just for defense. Synergy was if you had different synergies in your types of mons, like Drizzle with a Rain Sweeper, stuff like that. Support was things like Taunt, like Wish Pass, stuff like that. Hazards is hazards. Removal is removal. And then Z Captains, I judged your Z Captains. And then finally, before we get started here, there's a disclaimer. The grades don't define you. We're one of the worst teams I've ever seen. Never won by less than a 3-0 because he was just the greatest Pokemon Draft League player ever. And if you don't like your score, just prove it wrong. Alright, so we'll go ahead and bounce right into our first team. We're going to follow the draft order. So I had the first pick. Here's the first team. I had Mewtwo, Mega Blaziken, Scolipede, Dhelmise, Gliscor, Noivern, Togekiss, Ludicolo, Aggron, Weavile, Manectric, Snorlax. My Z users are Mewtwo and Weavile. Before we get to the grades over there on the right, Coach, do you have any input on this one?
So first off, a little disclaimer: I haven't even seen any of these slides, let alone where things are ranked. So just so you know, I'm reacting as we go. My first reaction is hazards not spelled with one Z?
Yeah, I think that's a typo. I didn't make these slides. Sumami did. They're awesome slides, but apparently there's a typo.
I'm not crazy. No, that's a thing. First reaction is I hate you for taking Mewtwo. Because I wanted that. But anyways, that's a different story. Scolipede and Mega Blaziken together is fine and might be a little redundant in the fact that like people are gonna know they have to bring like Quick Feet Jolteon or like those kind of like I don't know, Scarf Coco maybe. I have Coco, so maybe I just revealed my own strat. I don't know. I haven't prepped for you yet, so it's fine.
We don't play each other till week 11. We're the very last one. We're last season we were week 10. Now we're week 11.
I might not even have Coco then. I don't know, but that like people might be able to recognize that they need to bring either like fast things or scarf fast things or things like that to be able to counter that when there's the two of them. But I mean, at the same time, it's double speed boost. That's terrifying.
All right.
I do have thought on your Z users. Personally, I don't love Weavile here for you. I think Mewtwo's great. Mewtwo's like, that's terrifying. Wyvern or Scolipede over Weavile. Just as I'm seeing this now, and I don't even think I mentioned this to you when we were talking about Z users. So
no,
sorry.
you certainly didn't.
fan of Weavile Z myself. I know lots of people love it. I've just never found success with it. Outside of the one time I brought out Steelium Z Metal Claw. But that was a pain because the calculator apparently doesn't recognize Metal Claw, and that was a pain. But
That's annoying. Didn't know that.
Scolipede can definitely sweep with Z crystals. It can without too, but you might have to click Mega Horn sometimes that you just don't want to click. And Noivern, I love Z Noivern. That's just a soft spot thing.
I
It's
almost
not
went
necessarily
with
better.
Noivern.
Waterium Z Noivern is one of my favorite Z Crystal brings I've ever brought to a draft league. That Water Pulse Z move, though,
Yeah.
was great because it actually worked too, unlike the Steelium Z Metal Claw, which kind of worked. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, that's my first thoughts.
Okay, so before we move on to the grades, and I'll actually explain how all those work. One of the only times I ever did have Weavile as a Z captain, it put in so much work, so that's why I went with it this time. I really wanted to do Z Noivern, and I almost did Z Snorlax too, because it has crazy coverage, but I just
I
decided
remember
against it because I had familiarity with Z Weavile.
Snorlax. I think that was me.
Yeah.
I didn't have the rest of your team involved. Anyways, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I know I talked to other people.
Yeah. Okay, so now we'll talk about some of these scores off here to the right. So like I said, here's the 15 categories. So what happened was I did all my equations, and when it popped out the numbers, some of them were differential equations, some of them gave like ranges, stuff like that, totals, whatever. What ended up how it works is in every single category you will be ranked 1 to 12. If someone's 1, no one else can be 1. If someone's 2, no one else can be 2. So 12 is the best, 1 is the worst. And we're just going to kind of point out the big ones for each team. We won't go through every single one because that'll take forever and this would be a 3-hour long video. So we'll point out the big ones. We'll probably talk about everyone's cores, but aside from that, we'll skip through them. So first of all, we'll talk about the Fire, Water, Grass core. Not the strongest of ones on my team here. Mega Blaziken really carried mine, simply because Ludicolo isn't the best of offensive water, which is the one I have. It's the only water I have, and then Delmise is offensive, but at the same time, you kind of want a little bit more speed in your Fire, Water, Grass. But as a league as a whole, we were very weak on the Fire, Water, Grass cores. There were a couple really, really strong ones, but a lot of really weak ones, so I ended up being right in the middle at 6. Do you have any comments on that one?
That kind of surprises me. As you're saying we have really weak ones. I'm trying to think of who's got weaker ones. To be honest.
Well, we'll go through and we'll see them. Most people didn't even complete them, or not most, but some.
Ludi's interesting. Ludi's a mon I've been wanting to try out in drafts because I think it might be a little underrated, but at the same time, you might be on it, especially when you don't have rain setup, natural rain setup for it, and drizzle, which is fine. I don't think Ludi necessarily needs it, but it'll be interesting to see what you do with it, and I am very curious. It's gonna be interesting. You're also, oh yeah, we're just talking fire, water, grass. That's all.
Yeah, we're talking Fire, Water, Grass. Now we'll move on to the Fairy, Dragon, Steel. I definitely had one of the weaker ones here. I was in the bottom third of the league. Noivern and Aggron kind of held it back a little bit here. Noivern more so because Fairy, Dragon, Steel is usually your more defensive tour, and defensively Noivern's paper. And then Aggron just is really weak on the special side, so that kind of pulled it back. Togekiss was a good start for it, but I didn't really follow through on my Fairy, Dragon, Steel. We can go ahead and talk about that one.
Noivern is paper?
Isn't he?
You realize it has the same defensive stats as Crobat, and Bulky Bat is...
Does it really? Is oh, man, I thought Noivern was way worse. Never mind. I might have been too hard on myself on this one then.
It might even be like 10 points higher or something. It's not paper. It's not, I'm not saying Noivern's the bulkiest, but
I thought it was like 70, 70, 70 or something like that. I might be wrong.
The defense is that I think it's 100 HP or 90 HP.
Huh.
But I know it's 80 on the defenses, which is the same as Crobat, and I think the HP is Noivern might have 10 more.
Good to know.
Noivern's not. That's why one of the reasons I think Noivern is actually underrated, which was going to be my comment before you made the paper comment,
Go
because
ahead.
like it has better bulk than people think. At 123, which means you can run it with modest a lot of the time to get that extra little boost of power it needs, or you can fast bulky. Still, it's speeding to put in a ton of speed, and you can put a lot of bulky Vs if you want to run for Fang, Roost, U-turn kind of sets.
Good to know. I honestly just.
Particularly want as your preference, but I like it.
Yeah. Honestly, I drafted Noivern to be like the really fast infiltrator kind of guy. But that's good to know. Now I know I have more sets. Thank you, coach. Alright, so we'll move on to the next one then. It's the Psychic Fighting Dark. I kind of went all out for my Psychic Fighting Dark. I wanted a really good one and I wanted a really fast one. Because I did so and I went really expensive, all my top 3 Mons, cost-wise, are Psychic Fighting Dark. I got the best one. With Mewtwo, Mega Blaziken, and Weavile, all really fast, all really offensive. They cover each other super well with all their type coverages and all that. Both my Z users are here, which I think is kind of cool. Got anything else to say about it?
Don't really like Psychic Fighting Dark to me is like it's not a primary core in my mind, just because it's not something I've used a ton, and when I do, I don't typically love it. It's something that I kind of try to fill in, but that's just a gross one. That's just ugh. Can we move on now? I don't want to think about that one anymore.
Yeah, sure, we can move on. Next, we'll go ahead and skip down a couple. We'll talk about speed tiers. That was the other really big thing I was planning out in this team is I wanted to have really excellent speed tiers. Didn't want to be too fast, didn't want to be too slow. I wanted to have lots of top end speed. I also wanted to have a lot of really slow things to counter Trick Room, stuff like that. I did a really good job. I thankfully didn't get sniped at all, so my speed tier plan worked out, and I finished with the best ones.
I feel like I kind of want. I don't know. I feel like there might be one or two I like better than yours, but you definitely did fill out really good speed tiers. I just don't want to be like, yes, it's the top one, but maybe that's me being.
So, with that, it was the main thing I was doing was or with the equation, it was the average distance between your speeds was the number, and the greater it was, the better I ranked it. Because that way, in theory, you're harder to playing your speed tiers around, and mine was the highest one by almost 20%. So that's just how that worked out.
Look into this.
You go ahead and look into it. I know yours is pretty great when we get there. But
Stubborn on it because I feel like I like mine better. But anyways,
well, and the other thing I have to mention is the equation didn't take into account Unburden or like Swift Swim or anything like that. So that this is without that technically.
don't really love your speed tiers is just because your two main slow things are fighting weak. So like Conkeldurr with knockoff or your other slow thing being Delmise just ruins your Trick Room core anyways.
I got stuff for that. Don't worry about it. I got the hidden text.
Oh, Mewtwo, that's not that hidden.
No, that's not the hidden text we're talking about. Don't worry about it. I got it. Don't worry about it.
Anyway.
Oh, then the last one I'll mention here on my team is the removal. I didn't think I would be anywhere near the top on the removal. I ended up with the best one. Simply because I had the most and the ones most likely to carry it. Like Togekiss, Gliscor, Delmise, all are fine carrying it. Yes, Gliscor wants to have Poison Heal over Defog, but at the same time it can carry it and still work with it. I was really surprised I ended up with that one.
I am too after how you drafted last season.
Yeah, I
But
know, right? With
yeah,
like
I
no
mean I
removers.
can't argue with clearing. Can't argue your clearing, so
Yeah. All right, so we talked enough about me. We're gonna
have
move
a
on
cookie.
here. All right, so next is easy. Easy in the Seattle Marinis. Oh, and backtracking once real quick. We're gonna back up. The grade down there in the bottom right hand corner, that is the average score you got in each category. So, the ranges is 8 was actually the highest one. I'll tell you that now. The low point was just under 5, I believe. So the grade is just the average place you ended up in each one. All right. And then we'll go ahead and talk about Easy now. So, Easy has Marshadow, Protein Greninja, important note there, Heatran, Tapu Bulu with the Z Crystal, Suicune, Flygon with the Z Crystal, Passimian, Rotom Base, Piloswine, Lycanroc Midday, Xatu, and Tentacruel. Any first thoughts here?
First thought for me, now this is partially fresh because I literally just played him, so go check out my channel, plug chat. Anyways, to me, I don't know why you wouldn't Z Captain Marshadow.
Yeah, that was a
To
big
me,
one
it's
for
one
me
of the
too. I was really confused by that.
get that. It made it so much less scary to prep for. I know it still caused me issues, and I'm not saying it's not great without the Z moves, and I know Marshadow MZ is banned, but at the same time, it's not that much better than Never Ending Nightmare. Plus, you're really fast with great coverage. Well, so to me, you really should have had that there. I get why Flygon and Bulu have them, but to me, they're not as the users, in my opinion. Honestly, I would have gone with Marshadow and Protein Gren, or Marshadow and heck, I would have gone Tentacruel.
The other one I was
I
going to
like
say is Heatran. I like Heatran as a Z user, especially with Bulu on the team.
But yeah, to me, Bulu and Flygon are not. Um,
Yeah.
that's my first thought.
Yeah, I don't think they'd be the ones I would have chosen, but his team, he gets to use it as how he wants, and hopefully he shows us why he chose those. We'll go ahead and start with talking about this one. The Firewater Grass here. This one scored by far the highest in the league, and I actually plugged it in twice with Greninja and with Suicune. Both times it ended up the first. I didn't do it with Tentacruel. I probably should have, but both times it ended up first, regardless of Suicune or Greninja. Bulu Heatran was just crazy. The fact you get that in Draft League is pretty good. Suicune, Crocoon is just stupid. Greninja's Protein, it's stupid. That's all I've got to say about that. What about you?
I mean, props on the Firewater Grass. That is what it is. I like picking up a bulky water to go along with Protein Gren. Now that being said, a bulky water, not two bulky waters, but that's for the type variety talk.
Yeah. And actually, surprisingly, he didn't do so bad on type variety. He was in the upper half. There were some pretty type redundant teams in this one, so I think he kind of got bolstered by that. There were some really not type redundant ones, and there were some really, really type redundant ones.
And then there's Sumamifying, I guess.
Yeah. Alright, so we'll go ahead and go to the Fairy Dragon Steel. Heatran Bulu again, and Flygon. Flygon kind of pulled this one down. I know Flygon's great. At the same time, it kind of just didn't stay up to the quality of Heatran and Bulu. The Z Crystal on it helps. Not enough, though, so you ended up technically in the bottom half, but right in the middle.
Yeah. That's interesting, because I kind of like that Fairy Dragon Steel, so it'll be interesting to see the... now, obviously, with the S and A tiers, there becomes a lot of real scary, especially, to be honest, there's really scary dragons, fairies, and steels that we've unbanned. But in standard play, that would be a disgusting Fairy Dragon Steel. So it'll be interesting to see what other ones are out there.
Oh yeah, I mean, if we weren't dealing with S and A tiers, this would have been a crazy one. This probably would have been the number one for sure. Okay, so we'll move on. Psychic Fighting Dark. Marshadow, Protein Greninja, Xatu. Had you spent just a little bit more on your Psychic instead of Tier 5 Xatu, I think it's Tier 5, this probably would have been the best one in the league. That being said, it wasn't. So Xatu heard it a little bit, but still, it's crazy scary, and it's a lot scarier than I think third or fourth best.
So, I mean, Marshadows. Sawtooth's a bit underrated, but it's on to that core, so.
Yeah. So I mean, there's that. We'll go ahead and move on to that. The next one we're going to talk about is just one more down there, attack power. This was, I think, I'm trying to remember. I'm just trying to remember all the results off the top of my head. Attack power wise, this was number one. It was just barely beat number two. I can't remember who number two was. I remember it was just beat it though. And then there was a big drop off from 2 to 3.
Guys, I know it's not me.
I think it was either Bash or myself. I can't remember which one it was. But so
yeah, it was you. It was you.
Was it me? Okay. Yeah. So it was that, and then there was a big drop off, and then Bash was number 3, I think. But we'll see that when we get there. But yeah, so there was a big drop off there, and it was mostly due to Marshadow and Mewtwo's crazy, ridiculous scores. So I mean, that's all it really came down to, is those two really big offensive powerhouses. Do you have any comments on the attack power of this team?
I can attest.
You can attest. Okay. All right. So I'm trying to. We'll go down. We'll keep moving down here. The bulk one is probably going to be the first low score. I think we're pointing out. Really unbulky team doesn't really hurt it so much because there is bulk in the key places. Places where it counts, there's bulk. In the places that there's no bulk, there's really no bulk, but that's okay. Heatran, Bulu, Suicune, all crazy bulky. Tentacruel's bulky. Xatu's decently bulky. Piloswine can hold Eviolite, stuff like that. Yeah, I think that the bulk on this team is scarier than second worst.
I agree.
Okay. A lot of taunt users on this one. That's why the support score is really high on this one. A lot of taunt users. It's gonna stop a lot of setup, a lot of hazard stuff like that. The hazards itself, there's a lot of hazards on this team with a lot of good setters, so watch out for that. Any other final thoughts on this one? Hello.
To me, I want to see my team.
Okay, we're going to your team. I've been told to give it a beat. Sumami has told me to not power through this real quick, so nothing happens, Sumami. You're a disappointment. I forgot to say, we're gonna go back real quick. Easiest grade was a 7.9. So there you go. You finished average 7.9. All right, going on to you, Coach Oak. You want to read off your team there, Coach?
I went ahead and drafted Mega Salamence out of my S tier, Deoxys Defense out of the A tier, Tapu Koko out of tier 1, Tangrowth and Volcarona out of tier 2, Neoligo also out of tier 1, sorry, Cloyster out of tier 3, Hitmonlee, and Alolan Persian out of tier 4, Silvally out of tier 3, dang it, I tried to do this really well, out of tier 5, Steelix, and Drifblim.
It's okay. We trust you. It's good. You did fine.
It's like my battling skill.
Yeah.
It's sporadic at times.
All good. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll start talking about your cores. Your Fire, Water, Grass here. Volcarona, Tangrowth, Cloyster. I thought this was gonna score way better than it did, but Cloyster pulled it down because it's supposedly I put it towards an offensive bias because Fire, Water, Grass is supposed to be offensively biased.
Was Cloyster not offensive?
I don't know. It's just it didn't take into account Cell Smash. It doesn't take into account it didn't take into account the ability.
Defend your math.
I tried to get as much math in there as possible while making it doable in 3 days. I studied these teams in math for 3 days straight. Give me a break. I put as much in as possible. That being
Well,
said,
now I'm motivated.
yeah, you should be motivated. Like I said at the beginning, prove it wrong.
Hey, what's my synergy score? Who said that? Who went that?
I
What's
don't
your
know.
math there?
So the synergy scores, I counted like the synergistic pairs, and then I like kind of graded each one. Um, there was a lot of really synergistic teams. I'll just say that.
Party got into setup, not count as synergy?
Hey, I did. I counted as synergy. I might have left one out though. That might have been the problem.
Hey, jeez.
Don't worry,
I
coach. Like I said, doesn't prove you anything. Prove it wrong. When I
week 11, it's circled.
don't
Bring it
worry,
on.
dude. No, it's not me. It's the math. Don't worry.
Corona's on my side now, fool.
Yeah, he sure is. Volker and work. We'll get there. I honestly don't know what happened with that one. You had Tapu Koko with Unburdened Mons. You had Parting Shots. You had I don't know what happened there.
All kinds of setup. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. Okay, fine then. I see how it is.
I don't know what happened there. Just I'm sorry. Going back to Firewater Grass. This is a much better Firewater Grass core than the bottom third. Fear it. It'll get you. Moving on. Fairy Dragon Steel. Mega Salamence, Steelix, Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko, because I biased it towards defense, kind of pulled it down here. And the same with Steelix's special defense score, kind of pulled it down. This is still a really good one. What was that?
Steelix is Steelix. It's a tier 5. It's going to drag it down.
Yeah, exactly. This is a really good Fairy Dragon Steel core. Fear this. It's gonna hurt you. That's all I can say. Do you want to comment on your... Go ahead.
Yeah. So types I really like in draft, and with Coco bringing that electric terrain, I really kind of wanted something to round out that fairy and dragon type well, more defensively as well, because it was more of an offensive, even though Mega Ments can be very defensive. So I wanted something that could take ground hits well as cover that, and I thought Steelix is a tier 5, but I feel like it's a tier 5 you can lean on to take hits, and deal out enough damage or cause enough issues with roar and things like that, setting rock. So I thought it was a tier 5 that I know is going to hurt this core, but at the same time I think fit really well, that I can kind of lean on it to do its role.
Yeah, and I honestly think Steelix is really underrated. I would still pick it in tier 4. I've picked it in tier 5 before. I had lots of success with it. Not necessarily in a truly defensive or offensive role, but more as like set stealth rocks, roar, stuff like that. Dragon tail, get dragon
Exactly.
people out, and stuff like that. It does really well in those things. Alright, so we'll go ahead and switch gears over to Psychic Fighting Dark. This one was interesting that it scored. So it's Deoxys Defense, Hitmonlee, and Alolan Persian. I offensive biased this one. So Alolan Persian's offenses kind of pulled it down because it doesn't have the greatest of offenses, but like it's still solid with like adaptability and stuff, right? It does get adaptability. Am I crazy? Technician, that was it. Like it's still very solid. Hitmonlee is a great offensive threat with Unburden and being able to pound stuff. It's great. It's a great sweeper. The other one was Deoxys Defense actually pulled it down, even though it's a great part of this. I think you have a very synergistic one. It just scored poorly, and I think it's gonna do better than the 4 that it got.
As I said, I try to put a dark type mod on my team, but I don't really look like Mesh.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with that. I feel like that's not gonna. Then that's fine.
Yeah, and like I said, I think this is gonna do a lot better.
But I do have a team that's
I think it's gonna do a lot
No,
better.
I mean, here.
Hold on, you're roboting out. All right. I
I
think it's
said,
good.
but I agree.
Okay. Um, I think it's gonna do. I think it's gonna do a lot better than it is. That's all I gotta say. Be ready for it. We'll go ahead and talk about your attack balance. A lot of different things going on here. It wasn't so much because like you had everything can go both ways, but it was just balanced out really well, and it actually scored the best. Which just looking at your team, I wouldn't have said that, but now that I actually see it and I'm really thinking about it, yeah, I totally can see why it did that. Um, Came out really good. I think you have a very
One way, but
balanced
like,
attack that hits on both sides. You want to comment on that?